So good afternoon and welcome to the last session of JLF here at Boulder, Colorado. On behalf of Suraj, Michael, and all my colleagues, and Namita, a big thank you to all the wonderful authors. I mean, every session that I certainly have been to has been just totally amazing. I was at the last one here with these three wonderful poets, and they just knocked it out of the park totally, and it was just amazing to hear them. Three totally different perspectives, but the poetry resonated, and that's what we do, is dialogue from different parts of the world. Um, I've known Dr. Abuelaish for about 10 years, ever since he wrote his book 10 years ago. And I remember the first time he came and visited us at the Jaipur Literature Festival back home in India. The book hadn't quite got out. It couldn't make it to the festival at that point of time. But every word that he said then continues to resonate, sadly so. And we are convinced that one of the ways that perhaps we can address this is just by engaging and talking about the issue. It is one of the first steps. A lot of people, a little while ago, somebody said maybe this didn't happen at all, which is fair enough at some level. But the first step to any resolution, to any solution, is really to engage and hear what possibly is the problem, but not just from people like you and me, but really people who are there, who are experiencing what's happening, and maybe they can have the solution that evades all of us. So, Dr. Izzeldin Abuelaish, welcome to JLF here in Boulder. Thank you so much for taking the time out and joining us in New York and now here. It's an absolute honor. And I wanted to start with something that Abby said, that in your book you say medicine is a way to build bridges between communities.
Thank you so much. I am a medical doctor, and that's when I practice medicine. In life, we need to have a mission in life. And what is medicine? As a gynecologist, I practiced in many countries, but when I practiced in Israel, I wanted the Israelis to know who are the Palestinians, not to see the Palestinians as workers, serving them, working for them, and also for the world to know who are the Palestinians. And it's important to know what we call the other. It's not the other. There are people like you with hopes, with the plans, who succeeded in life in spite of all the challenges we faced. I believe no nation has been tested as we have until today. And even for me, as a Palestinian refugee who was born, raised, and is still living in Jabalia refugee camp, my life was a war. We are a people who are just fighting to survive. We want to survive like others, with dignity, with the freedom, with justice. We don't hate anyone. We don't want to delete anyone. We want to be recognized as a human, to recognize our humanity. So that's why when I practice medicine in Israel, what is medicine? I delivered thousands of babies. The cry of the newborn baby for me is a cry of hope, cry of life. It's the only cry which means life. And no one can differentiate between the cry of the newborn baby, a Palestinian, Israeli, American, Canadian, Indian. It's a cry of hope. So I realized medicine is a human equalizer, stabilizer, socializer, and harmonizer. We are born equally inside the hospital. Then we start the discrimination And how do we treat each other based on color, ethnicity, name, and religion? And that's the message we need to take, to humanize, not to politicize. Enough politicization for a limited political agenda or political interest. Humanity brings us together, and that's what we need to have a new paradigm shift to adopt it in our life.
Dr. Abuelaish, much of your life as a kid, you were in Jabalia, but that's not where, that's not your village. Your village is Abuelaish. And what's the meaning of the word Abuelaish?
Abuelaish, it means either bread or life. My family were born or they lived in a village not far from where do I live now in Gaza, 10 kilometers. I can walk to there. My family, they used to come before 48 to Gaza walking distance. It's a shortcut. And that's where we are with the family, with reputation, and then in a sudden to be a refugee.
And why did your family move from Abuelaish into Gaza?
They were uprooted. They were expelled from their homeland, thinking it will be a few days, a week, and these weeks, they are now more than 7 decades waiting for the day to be there, to go back. Even the land that we own, the deeds we have, it's written in our name. Until now, I go to visit there. I see it. I know it. And that's where we are. And our souls, my father and my forefather, my grandfather, they passed away in Jabalia camp. But their souls are connected with Hooj, our village. It's our home. And that's the most important part. When someone to be derooted, uprooted from their homeland. And we are lucky to have the daughter of Ibrahim Abu Lughod, the Palestinian. I read his story when he visited Gaza and in his will to be buried in Jaffa, and how his daughter, he's an American Palestinian, succeeded with all of the challenges to fulfill his will. Even now, I would love to go back home. I would love, and the first thing, when I go back home to Gaza, before I go to my home, I go to visit the graves of my daughters, to say to them, I didn't forget you. I didn't forget you, to tell them what are we doing to keep them alive. That's our home. That's the human message, and that's what I want the world, for once, just for once, listen to the Palestinians and know who are the Palestinians.
Dr. Abuelaish, one of the things that you write about in the book is that as a kid, you used to wear, hand-me-down clothes that were patched and you used to go to school. But you had to still work because you had to bring money back to the family. And you were thinking of dropping out of school till your teacher sat you down one day.
Because life, it's not an easy life. As a child, I never tasted my childhood. My life was a war, fighting just to survive, with all kinds of suffering, all kinds of dirty work I have to experience. And being the eldest in the family, you have a responsibility. So I have, after school, to go to find any kind of work to help my family and to go to school. Until the age of 10, when I felt sick with rheumatic fever, to be admitted to the hospital, and I saw the doctors, how they treat the patients. I said, one day I want to be a medical doctor in order to rescue, to save my family from the misery of life, the abject poverty. And thanks to my teachers who believed in me. And they said, you can be something. You have to come to school. But how? In these challenges that you want to live two lives. Children are our life and the beauty of life. And even until now, I remember it. My mother, who was behind my success, from nothing you have to succeed. If I didn't get the first in the class, I will be punished, because there is no mercy in life for us. And we have to take the responsibility to be determined that we have to succeed. And that's the Palestinian people. They are ready and they are up to the challenge. They are risk takers. They can start from tomorrow, from 0 point, and they will succeed. Because life is the good example, and it's the university which teaches us. So we are learning from it, and we value education. In Gaza Strip, which is under bombardment now, it has one of the highest literacy rates in the Middle East and maybe in the world. It has the highest number of PhD candidates, but it's the only one which is deprived from the most precious thing in the universe. It's the freedom and the human life. And the life. They are closer to death than to life now in Gaza and in Palestine.
Dr. Abuelaish, again, you went off to work. You were working to fix chicken coops, and one day you got a job for 2 days, but you were late, and that person took another person. But you then met another family who you then stayed with for 6 months and then revisited many years later.
Because it's important at that time, the first time, to be exposed to the Israelis at the age of 14 that you are talking about, the summer holiday. The summer holiday is not a holiday. We have to find any kind of work to work. So I was lucky to get a job and work with an Israeli Jewish family from Yemen, with the chicken coops and their farm. I was counting the day, sleeping there from 8 o'clock or even sometimes 6 till 8 in the evening, away from my family, worried, afraid what is going to happen to me. By the end, I earned 400 liras. I went back home happy to be with my family. But 1 week later, I remember it. We have a vine tree. My mother, it was in summer, and it's the season of the grapes. She didn't allow anyone to cut from it till I come back. But we were forced to cut that vine tree. When 1 week later, Ariel Sharon, who is living now on our village, they came with the bulldozers. They want to widen the streets and to demolish the houses. So we were forced to cut the tree and our house to be demolished. And what is that house? It's not a house. It's a refugee. It's a camp house. Even the washrooms are public outside. But for us, it's a palace. And that's what I say. The most difficult thing in life for one to be homeless. If you want someone to care someone in our culture, you don't say to be killed or to die, to have his home to be destroyed. And now Gaza Strip turned into rubble, homeless. But with the 400 liras, we were able to buy a new house in the camp and to stay inside the camp. We should not leave it. And we built from there. So Palestinians are up to the challenge. Even now in Gaza, Palestinians are ready to start from zero. But this zero should be accompanied with accountability, with justice, with the freedom, with dignity, with life and rights of the Palestinian people. That's what we are determined, and we need your help to support the Palestinians' rights, justice, freedom, and dignity. Because in Palestinians' dignity and the freedom and security, the Israelis are secure and free. They are not secure and free as long as Palestinians are not. So their freedom, their justice, their dignity, their equality is dependent and linked to the Palestinians' freedom, rights, dignity, and justice.
You finally went off to study and you had to leave Gaza. You went to Egypt to study. You went, of course, you were part of a hospital in Israel itself. How did you get to leave Gaza and go on to study? Sorry, how many of you have been to Bethlehem or Palestine or the West Bank? So for those of you who don't know, so if you have to cross into Gaza or into Bethlehem or anyway, you have to go through, it's like going into a jail. You go through these paths with barbed wires, with very hostile guards or young people who are now being trained in the army. And it's a humiliating way of treating. We, with our Indian passports, didn't really have an issue, though one of our colleagues were held back. We used to do a festival for 3 years. But it was the most incredibly traumatizing visit to just get in and out, that too with an international passport, than anything else. And yet you were doing that literally every day.
Yeah, when I practice medicine in Israel, because I have a mission in life, I want them to see the Palestinians, to see the human face of the Palestinians. And I believed in medicine, and I have to cross the borders. And at the beginning, the first day or a few days arriving to the hospital, from where are you? I said to them, I am from Jabalia camp. I am Palestinian. And Jabalia camp, it means a lot to them because it's the birthplace of the first intifada. And they see me as a worker who is working, crossing the borders to work in farms, cleaning, anything, or the Palestinian children who are throwing stones. So I said, let us see. So I have to prove to them even that I am a medical doctor. I am equal to them. I am qualified as they are. And I have to prove to them that I speak medicine. Till one time, they asked me to give a lecture. I gave the lecture to them. And they realized I know medicine as they know. I am qualified as they are. And this was the start. And at the checkpoint, because it's about ignorance, our enemies in this world are our ignorance, our greed, our arrogance. So we need to overcome it. You don't know someone until you deal with. So we need to know each other. We need to communicate based on human values. So I used to cross the borders, and they realized, and they started to know me from crossing the borders. The Palestinian doctor, the Gaza doctor. So I built the trust. Even when I come, many female soldiers, they know me, and they ask me if I can provide them with any medical advice, even to provide them with bills. And I build the trust, and I am proud of that. And this has strengthened my faith that it depends upon overcoming the barriers, the political barriers, or what we call psychological barriers created. There is a lot of commonalities between us as Palestinians and Israelis when we see the human face, not to politicize it. And that's the most important part in it. When we realize the humanity in each of us based on equality, justice, freedom, dignity, then we can overcome these challenges.
You were not in the country when you first got to know that your wife was not well.
Tomorrow will be the 16th anniversary of the death of my wife. After was fed up with the situation, I felt I want to take my children to a place where they can be safe and secure. And I have a few offers at that time, either in Belgium or in Africa, to be the ambassador of WHO, representative of the World Health Organization. Then my daughter Shada wrote me an email saying that my mother is sick. I left her 16th of August, 2008. And end of August, she sends me an email. What's going on? I talked to her a few days before. They send me the report. She has acute leukemia. I succeeded to transfer her to the hospital where I am working in Tel Aviv. And then the journey to death, to come back from Brussels to Tel Aviv. I arrived there. Nadia was in the intensive care unit. Then she passed away 16th of September 2008, 4:45 p.m. I felt it's the end of the world, because I believe the orphan is not the one who loses the father. The orphan is the one who loses the mother. The mother is the big incubator. The mother is the big heart. I felt my backbone is broken. But I am blessed from Nadia to have 6 lovely, beautiful daughters and 2 sons. Nadia is gone. But we kept the name Nadia. The 4th of August, 2024, my daughter Shada gave birth, and the gift was the granddaughter Nadia, to keep Nadia alive and to carry her name. And I will never forget Nadia or my lovely daughters and my mother and the lovely people.
Coming back itself was a nightmare.
It was a nightmare. I want to come back from Brussels to Tel Aviv. It's 4 hours flight. But for a Palestinian, it's a nightmare. I have to go through Jordan to find any kind of flights to take to me to Jordan, to cross the bridge. At the bridge, once I submitted, I was the first at the bridge in order to reach Nadia, and her sister-in-law calling me, Nadia is waiting for you. And then I have to wait at the bridge for security reasons. I arrived at 6 a.m. until 6 p.m. till they released me. I said to them, you know me, I work in Israel, this is my ID. And then to pass by, to go to a checkpoint, I thought this is the shortcut. At the shortcut, I realized the soldiers, they said, what brought you here? This is not for the Palestinians. This checkpoint is only for the Israelis. You have to go back through another checkpoint, which is assigned for the Palestinians. And that's the journey to death. Even when Nadia passed away 16th of September, 4:45 p.m., it was Ramadan. I want to take her back to Gaza. At the checkpoint, I am with her on the ambulance. We were separated in death to take her to the checkpoint back to back, and I have to walk the checkpoint and to meet them after 1 kilometer after they did the security check-up. But this doesn't break me, and it will never break me. The opposite, it strengthens me. And I don't want anyone on earth to suffer what do we suffer, but we want others to think of what is happening, to reflect on it, and not to generalize. I have many Israeli friends that we work together at the hospital, but we want to work and to live and to treat each other outside the hospital.
Dr. Abuelaish, you were talking about your being let in or ambulance being let in, but in many ways, the Israel government controls every drop of water that comes into Palestine, every grain of rice that comes in there, every vegetable, everything is controlled.
Yeah, no, that's, yesterday we have a session about understanding the Palestinian-Israeli conflict. Is it Palestinian-Israeli conflict? Is it conflict? I think we are misleading. There are two sides, Palestinian and Israeli. But are the two sides equal? Not. One is occupier, one is occupied, one is oppressor, one is oppressed. One has the power, the other is the weak. So it's not about conflict, it's about colonization and the history of colonization and decolonization. So that's important. It's not a conflict between two equal parts. I would love to see them equally one day. And the guarantee for equality is justice, is freedom, is dignity, and equality for all. That's the guarantee for that to equalize between them. But when we equalize, can we equalize between a patient with cancer and a patient with the flu? And that's the issue. I can't say two patients. It's unequal, it's unjust. So we need to seek the right diagnosis and the truth. As Jesus said, seek the truth and the truth sets you free. The right diagnosis means setting up the right treatment. Unless we have the right diagnosis, we can't set up the right treatment for the situation. And that's what is happening. You speak about water, Palestinians in the West Bank. What about the settlements? It's occupied by settlements. More than 700 or 800,000 settlers with all of the brutalities experiencing against the Palestinians. The olive trees are cut. Just today I heard it. Cutting, attacking villages. The water under the feet of the Palestinians. In the West Bank, they can't dig wells to use it for themselves. And who is taking it? The settlers. And they are enjoying it for their swimming pools, and the Palestinians are thirsty in summer to drink or to have control over their water. The checkpoints, the intimidation, the land, confiscation of the lands on daily basis, house demolishing, arrest of the Palestinians. Since October 7 until now, more than 6,000 Palestinians in the West Bank have been not arrested. They have been kidnapped, because you have to understand, the way they take or arrest the Palestinians, they come by the middle of the night in your bedroom, not knocking the door, with the guns over your head, threatening the children, scaring the children and the parents, and they are taken. And that's the situation of the Palestinians. In spite of that, we are asking the world, as I said, listen to our pain, feel our pain. We don't want this fight. Enough, we suffered a lot as Palestinians. We can't live in this sword on our neck. And that's the situation in Palestine now. It's not only in Gaza. It's in the West Bank, in Jenin, in Tulkarem, in Nablus, in East Jerusalem. Even the graves are not safe. The graves, my daughter's graves, are destroyed but they are living with me. And that's what we are facing as people. Imagine for a second if you are, I was telling my friends, can you tolerate to be deprived or disconnected from internet for 1 hour? Huh? For 1 hour, internet for 1 hour. How do you feel? What about the Palestinians in the Gaza Strip? Before October 7, they described it, it's a hell. It was hopeless, lifeless, helpless, lightless, freeless. Now, Gaza Strip, it's a ghost. You can't recognize Gaza Strip. It's a childless, it's parentless, it's homeless, it's healthless, it's foodless, it's waterless. What else you can imagine in life? The people there, they are starving. They are starving. 2 pieces of potato. They lost the memory of the fruits. They don't know the fruits. Where Gaza Strip is common and they produce it. What kind of life? As I said, they are closer to death, which is man-made. It's man-made. It's not by the act of God. The world is watching it live, either indifferent about it, or biased, selective, and others who are complicit in the suffering of the Palestinians. And that's what we need, to expose what is happening. And even today, in spite of this, we are Palestinians. Today, I see the momentum started. In the United Nations today, they recognized Palestine as a state, where 143 countries voted in favor of Palestine and to have Palestine's seat as a state in the United Nations. This is the first step for the recognition of the Palestinian state as a free, independent, as equal state to other nations.
Dr. Abuelaish, you wrote this book 10 years ago, before this present conflict, as we are seeing. As you said, today when you go back to Gaza, you can't even go and see your daughter's graves anymore because they've been destroyed. And the streets today are graves for your sister and her family of 26 people. How then can you still not hate?
When we speak, because the people after the first tragedy I faced and the killing of my daughters, the people were expecting me to hate. And that's the question they asked me, do you hate? And even in one of the interviews by Christiane Amanpour to my daughter Shada, who was severely wounded, they asked her, do you hate? Her answer was, whom to hate? And we as Palestinians, whom to hate in this world? So I started as a gynecologist to study what is hatred? What is the meaning of hate? And that's what I found out. Most of the time they speak about hatred as emotion, as a feeling, as a behavior, as attitude. So I said, why the people they want me to hate? So I came with my own definition of hatred. Hatred is a contagious, self or community destructive disease. And it's contagious. But most important, it's the result of exposure. No one is born to hate. No one is born violent. It's not by nature. It's by nurture. And that's what we need to focus, the triggers of hatred, to prevent the triggers of hatred. And I said to myself, I am determined because I gave the oath to my daughters, whom I saw they are killed in front of me. I will never rest. I will never relax. Even I wrote it. If I could know that my daughters were the last sacrifice on the road to peace, the just peace between Palestinians and Israelis, then I would accept their loss. Sadly, they were not the last. Palestinians are just numbers, but we are not numbers. We are people with names, with the life, with hopes, with the plans, with parents, with the future. So the path and the way is in front of me to achieve the plans and the dreams and to bring justice to my daughters. And it's not with hatred. I know the wound is big, but I have to be determined and not to allow hatred, because with hatred, I am collapsed, I am broken, I am defeated. Hatred is a poison which will destroy me. It's a fire which burns me, and I give another weapon to the perpetrator to use it against me and to enjoy it. So I say to you, in life, don't accept to be a victim more than once. Don't accept to be a victim of this destructive hatred. The path is in front of you. Let yourself the energy to come together to keep moving forward. As Einstein said, life is like riding a bicycle. To keep balanced, we must keep moving forward, more determined, more focused, not to give up. And that, because once we fell down, we are not going to move forward. We are heavy, and we can't catch up with the speed. So I say to you, don't let others use it against you.
Dr. Abuelaish, yesterday we were talking, and one of the things that came out is that Israel looks at America as its best friend.
I think they are making a big mistake to count on the states as a big friend. We have in Arabic, your closest neighbor is much helpful to you, and you have to build a relationship than your best friend or even the far brother or sister. So who is the closest neighbor to the Israelis? It's the Palestinian people who are there. So they have, instead of that, to focus on building an equal, dignified, and just relationship with the Palestinians. The political interest between the states and Israel, nothing is permanent. But we as Palestinians, we are rooted there, and we are there. So they have to find a new approach and to direct their interest in finding their safety, their security, their future, in building it with the Palestinians.
You've always had a great sense of hope, despite the fact that 3 daughters, 1 niece, and much of your family today who's still in Jabalia, who are exposed to this kind of violence and murder. How do you look at this going forward? Are you still hopeful that this particular thing will pass and there will be a solution? That Benjamin Netanyahu, his government will fall? I mean, today we are seeing in Israel tens of thousands of people marching against the government of the day. Will they succeed? Will there be peace? Will there be a development again?
You know, hope. What do we mean by hope? Hope is not the word. It's not to sit here and let the world change. Number one, we need to have confidence and faith. We need to have hope, but most important, we need to have action and to act, to translate the hope into a goal and achievement. Personally, I believe there is hope. And I am here because of hope. In making the change that we aspire in the people and to act. And as a medical doctor, I will never lose hope as long as the patient is still alive. Only I lose hope once the patient is gone. And we as Palestinian people, we are living nation. And they said before, the Israelis, they said, the old Palestinian will die and the young will forget. But the young, they are more determined and they are more connected with their roots than anyone else. And also they used to say, oh, the Israelis, they used to say, oh, Palestinians, they want to throw us in the sea. No one has been thrown into the sea or the ocean. So we are living, and we as Palestinians, I got the hope. When I moved to Canada, my son, Abdullah, he was 6. And always, I teach my children, don't forget from where did we come, to be in touch, and that's the will I gave my children. Don't forget your uncles, your aunts, your nephews, your nieces, your sisters. So we are connected there. He went to teach English in Spain. I called him. And then I found in his room, he is hanging Palestine flag. Said, from where do you have it, Abdullah? He said, I took it with me. And that's the hope. I see the hope in my children. What do they have? When I came to Canada with 5 living children who are traumatized, the loss of their mother, their sisters, I said to them, I will never tolerate failure. We have to succeed. Canadians are not smarter than us. If they study 2 hours, we have to study 8 hours. And it wasn't easy for them. And then the first, my son Muhammad, he graduated from Upper Canada College, IB. On the day of the graduation, the teacher, she introduced him. Muhammad came from Gaza, and he succeeded to make it from 0 to hero. My eldest daughters graduated from the Schools of Engineering, University of Toronto. My youngest son, Abdullah, who was 6, graduated June from Schulich School of Business. Now he is doing his MBA in Europe. But they will never, I see the hope, that we handle the torch to our children. So when you speak about Netanyahu, it's not about Netanyahu. It's about the international community, because the suffering and what is happening in Palestine is not limited to Palestine and Israel. It crossed barriers. It crossed barriers. The whole world is afflicted by it now. The Palestinian issue, where some countries, they thought, forget the Palestinian issue, put it in the shelves, in the drawers. Now it's on the top agenda, the safety, the security of the world. All of the world will be free once the Palestinians are free. Your freedom is from the Palestinians' freedom and the Israelis. So the world will benefit from putting an end to the Israeli occupation and from the self-destructive act of the Israeli fanatic right government, which is destructive to the Israelis, to the American administration, which is complicit in what is happening there, and to the Palestinian people.
I'm going to open it up to the House, but the one example of hope that came home certainly to me was when Dr. Abuelaish was with us at the Center of Fiction. He had set up a foundation, which I want him to just talk about a little bit. And one of the girls that that foundation supported drove out to see him at the Center of Fiction. And she represented, in many ways, the hope. Tell us a little bit about the foundation, and then we will open it up.
I was thinking, what can I do to keep my daughters alive? Because I believe my daughters were killed, and this a tragedy can't be the end of our life. And in every bad thing, there is something positive. So I said, what can I do to keep my daughters alive? Because in my life, I am in debt to my mother, my wife, and my daughters. And I thought nothing is more important than having a charity dedicated for education of girls and young women. If politics divides, let humanity brings people together. Education of girls and young women from Palestine, from Israel, from Jordan, from Syria, from Lebanon, Muslims, Jewish, Christian, the Druze, anyone who is in need and succeeding from hardship. Because I believe also, the hope I see it in Marwa and others, safe, stable, sustainable world is the duty and function and role of women and women's education. It's time for women to be sitting on the table and to make the change we aspire to. Women are not a threat to us. Women, they complement us. They are not a threat to men. Give me 5 women in the history of the world who were behind disasters or wars in this world. I am sure if women can't bring the just peace to our world, they will never make it worse as it is now. That's why I am proud of Daughters for Life and will continue to be proud of.
So anybody wants to know about the foundation, it's called Daughters for Life, and I think he'll be more than happy for any contributions to that. Opening it up for questions, Ambassador Navdeep Suri, who served in the Middle East. Ambassador Suri.
Word. Try, please, to limit your question to your question. I know all of us have our hearts full right now with many different emotions. It could be pain, anger, love, or empathy. We should all recognize that in each other and save any comments for afterwards. And please just ask a question. So,
Dr. Abuelaish, in July, the International Court of Justice, by a majority of 14-1, declared the Israeli occupation of Palestine illegal, and it included Gaza, West Bank, and East Jerusalem. 24 hours before that, the Knesset passed a resolution saying there will not be a Palestinian state. Do you, because some commentators have started talking about it, do you think that given the ground realities, there should be some discussion about one state which is with equal rights for all? Do you think that Israel will accept a state which is not Jewish but democratic?
Thank you. I have been asked this question sometimes even in another way. Would you support two-state solution, one-state solution? And this, I give the example as a gynecologist to a woman in labor, in agony. And I approach her to ask her, what do you want the baby to be? A baby boy or girl? And which university you are going to send your baby? What is she going to say to me? She will curse me to throw me with shoes. Deliver the baby, and then we can think to which university. And that's important. One state or two-state solution, this should be asked to the Israeli government, to the international community, to the White House and Western countries. What do they want? We as Palestinians, the two-state solution is dead. And we need to ask, who killed it? We know who killed it. So the only way is one-state solution with equal citizenship rights, and we can survive together as they have in many parts of the world, in Belgium, in any other country, not to politicize the religion. For all of its citizens, not based on religion, based on citizenship. And believe me, we lived like that before 48. Muslims, Jewish, Christians, Druze, we can live together. You live here in the States, different ethnic backgrounds, as equal citizens. And that's what I believe, the guarantee, but we need the international community to put, and even not to walk the talk of the international resolutions, not in a biased or selective way.
How do Palestinians deal with the Hamas?
Just hold up your mic, please.
How do Palestinians deal with the hatred some Palestinians, namely the Hamas and Yahya and al-Sinwar, have toward the Israelis and also toward some of their own people? At least I read that there is such.
Of course, we are not saints. We are people like others. This is one thing. And as you mentioned, even when Sanjoy mentioned, the people who are demonstrating in the streets of Israel, they are against Netanyahu. They don't love him. I don't want to mention the word hatred. They don't love him. They don't like him. So for the Palestinians, number one, Hamas is not the Palestinian people. It's part of the Palestinian people. They don't represent the Palestinian people. This is important. We should deal not in a fragmented way. When we speak about a war between Israel and Hamas, this is a big mistake. The war is against the Palestinian people in the Gaza Strip and the West Bank. Hamas is part, and even we have to learn and to find out how Hamas came to power and who was behind the foundation of Hamas. Hamas was founded by Israel in 1985 as a charity to provide social welfare and even the survival of Hamas. Even by that, Hamas was elected in the most free democratic election. In 2006, I ran for that election as a independent candidate. And even Jimmy Carter, he was there. Many leaders were there witnessing it. We as Palestinians, do we have the right for a free democratic election or not? If we choose anyone, then the American administration, they turned against the Palestinians. I want to ask you, if tomorrow in the States, the American people to elect a leader that you don't like, can any country in the world to object? Would you accept? Would you accept the world to say, no, we are not dealing with him or her? What's your fear? It's not your interest. It's our democracy. So what do we mean by democracy? Is it selective, based on geography, the location? So honestly, I will say it clearly. I lost faith in this word we call democracy or human rights conventions. It's not democracy. It's hypocrisy, mediocrity, and injustice. And it's time to change.
Jesse, go ahead.
Sure. You mentioned that the administration's been complicit. Were you surprised? I mean, many people have been surprised over that complicity. I'd like to get your input, and also, with all the trauma that's happened, how is the Palestinian people going to deal with that level of trauma that's been inflicted on the people, and how are they going to move forward?
Just hold that. Let's take one last question. Jesse, go ahead, and then you answer both.
Dr. Abuelaish and I have spoken a little bit, and I wanted to get the answer to a question of, we spoke about the extreme factions on either side, the far-right Israeli government, Hamas, and just perpetuating ongoing decades and cycles of hatred. And yet the people just want to live together and have a life. And how do they get the power? And you mentioned international organizations, committees. Are there any that could come together and have a level of power that could impact what is happening?
We have been trying what we call it the downstream. The downstream, and we are talking about peace organizations who are supportive. But the more organizations which are working on peace and dialogue, we see the situation is getting worse and worse, in particular for the Palestinian people. And honestly, it's palliative care. It's cosmetic to show that we are talking, we are eating hummus together, we are sharing falafel together, and the Palestinian, then we go, each of us to go to his home. I sent my daughter, Bisan, God bless her soul, and Dalla and Shada to peace camps. And they have been in peace camps. And after that, each of them, they go to their place. My daughter to face the checkpoints, the abject poverty, the suffering, and the other to be there, and they are disconnected. And then my daughter Bisan was killed. My daughter Shada was wounded. These are the situation. So we need an international community, a fair mediators, not the states, because as you mentioned, it's complicit. We lost faith in them. When you speak about complicit, most of the weapons, the Palestinians are not killed by Israel. It's by the American weapons. The bombs, even lately, they were discussing to send Israel 2 bombs, 2,000 tons or 500 tons. I said, what do you mean? What is the difference between 2,000 and 500? It's weapons, they are killing, so they are complicit and they are accountable to it. The most important to put an end, and the Palestinians, they have been, it's not PTSD. You hear about PTSD, post-traumatic. Palestinians, they are experiencing transgenerational, intergenerational, cumulative, persistent, continuous trauma. But they are up to the challenge. But the first thing, you need to stop the bloodshed. Rehabilitation later on, after we end the bloodshed, the world, and we need accountability. We need accountability because why it's repeated? Why it has been 2006, 2008, 12, 14, 18, 20, 21, 22, 23, continuous, because of the lack of accountability, and most important, the unconditional support and immunity of the states and the Western countries. We have a good saying in Arabic, the one who is safe, secure from punishment when they misbehave, they will continue to repeat it. So we need to put an end to this situation, and this will be a lesson to other countries around the world. I am sure. You see why Russia did it in Ukraine. Why Russia? To say, I did it. It happened in Afghanistan, in Iraq, in many other countries. How many genocides we say never again, in Haiti, in Rwanda, in other places. We need accountability to stop it and to have one standard of justice, not based on political agenda. It's based on the international law. We have the international law, but there is no problem in the international law. There is a problem in living by the values and these rules. That's why the world is discordant these days, and we lost faith in the international community.
I'm going to ask you to end this by reading a poem from the end of your book.
This poem, I would read it because it's close to my heart, and I try. The title, it says, where love resides. But I can say, where justice, where humanity, where equality, where freedom resides, in memory of my daughter Bisan. Because Bisan was everything in my life. She was the eldest. I was thinking, what name I delivered her? What name I want to give her? So Bisan is a town in the north of Palestine. And it's a song by Fayrouz, the Lebanese singer. So in memory of Bisan, I say to Bisan from here, I long to touch you, Bisan, one more time, to hug you, to tell you how sorry I am that your mom died. But you, too, are gone. Your smiling face, your gentle way, your softness, your non-judgmental words, your pain for your people, your way of life, your dreams, aspirations, and your hope for peace. Just days before the war, I spoke with your dad. He gave me your phone number. It's still in my car. Every day I glance at the number, seeing your name, Bisan. I wish I had spoken with you more, but I didn't have the guts. I spoke with you 3 days before you died. I told you that I'm praying for your safety. My prayers were not heard. Through the shelling, the bombing, the smoke, I feel I have been betrayed by God, by my country, by the cruelty of humanity, by the warmongers, by those who think violence is the solution. And with all of this, I have been given a gift to have spent 6 weeks with Shada, Izzeldin, and Ghaida. Shada is my daughter who was wounded, and Ghaida is my niece who was wounded. Ghaida, who was wounded, I spoke with her this morning. In this war, she lost 3 of her siblings. I heard no words of revenge, nor hatred. I heard no anger. I heard the deep belief, and still I believe in that peace is possible even with this enormous loss. I have been strengthened from their strength. I am more determined from their determination. I am more at peace from their peacefulness. Bisan, forgive me for not being able to save you. Forgive me for giving you hope that peace is possible and then taking that dream from you. You will always be my symbol of hope, peace, and mostly gentleness. I shared a dream with my friend because I dreamed with Bisan. Your dad shared the dream with me days after you were killed. He came into a room full of men, and there you were sitting amongst them. He asked you, "Why are you sitting here, Bisan? You know it is not acceptable in our society." You answered, "All is fine now, Dad. I am happy and well. I can be here now among the men where I am needed. May no other woman need to die in order to be able to influence the men, the decision makers, the politicians, the biased ones, the complicit ones, as you have, Bisan. May we women," this is an appeal of women who are killed everywhere, children who are killed in silence. May we women be heard and heeded. May the men in this world get the chance to know from deep within their hearts that this is where the answer lies, in their hearts, where love resides.
Where love resides, ladies and gentlemen, I shall not hate Dr. Abuelaish Izzeldin.